Hi, today I'm gonna show you how to knit this size adjustable pants. Let's get started. Hi guys! First of all, please check my description box for all the details such as yarn, needle, and written pattern. Today, I'm going to show you how to knit this leggings. However, you don't have to knit leggings. You can knit pajama bottom or shorts, size adjustable. Alright? So, first of all, I knitted it quite long waistband because I wanted to fold it like this. It's really up to you. After the waist, slowly increase towards to your hip. That's the widest part. After increasing, I add some rows only for my back. Can't you tell that blue part? This side is thicker than the other side, which is front piece. Can't you tell? I add 10 rows, about 1 inch. It's really up to you. If you want to add more rows, that's fine. I'll talk about it later. After I add few rows only for back piece, I connect everything. Back piece and front piece. Then I knit until everything covers. I should say until leg spread. You know what I'm saying? After the short row, connect everything and knit until cover your butt and front. And then whenever you reach the desired length, I call bridge because I don't know how to call that part, spread the leg part. Then start knitting legs. Again, I knit as a leggings, so inside of the legs, I decrease some stitches towards to the ankle. That's about it. And you need to do very simple math with your measurement. Okay, you will need waist. Actual waist or your desired waist measurement, it's up to you. My desired waist is 28 inch. My desired hip measurement is 34 inch. And from the waist to hip, the bottom of the waist to the widest part of the hip, I measure there and 5 inches. And then legs 24 inches, which is, starting at the very top of the leg until where you want to start the rib. So 24 inches for me. Right there, that's the leg starts, right? So I measure inside of my legs and make sure you will have the rib, right? So make sure about it. And obviously, you need to knit your swatch. And only for the waist, okay? When I count stitches and rows, I kind of stretch them out. So first of all, you have to count just a regular gauge. And for the only waist, I stretch them out, then count. All right? So my gauge was 4 inch by 4 inch equal 19 stitch by 25 rows. Okay? And with stretch, I had 15 stitches. That's only for my waist. And I figured it out my cast on, 4-inch versus 28-inch equal 15 stitch versus X stitch. And X equal 105. And cast on has to be multiple of 4. So I pick 104. And only for the cast on, I use one size bigger needle, which is 5 millimeter, because it has to be stretchy, right? I don't like tight, waist. So with 5 millimeter needle, I made 104 cast on according to my math. Okay? Because the waist part has to be, bigger enough, but has to be small enough to hold it. You know what I'm saying? Because if it's too loose, you might have to use the elastic band. Anyway, the rib starts right away. And don't forget to change the needle. I changed to 4 millimeter from 5 millimeter. And rib should be repeat of knit 1 and purl 1. You have to be very careful on first row, because if you make a mistake on first row, your rib will be ruined. Because from the second row, you just have knit over knit stitch and purl over purl stitch. Again, the waist, okay, you have to use the gauge, kind of stretch them out. So the number should be smaller than regular gauge. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, I knit the rib about 6.5 inches. Now you have to add markers. Where you put the biggie marker, that's the center of your back. Then you count evenly. Then add 2 markers. Now, let me talk about the increasing. First of all, you have to find out your stitch count for your hip. My desired hip measurement is 34 inch. And you use the formula to find out your stitch count for hip. My hip stitch count is 161. So I would say 162. So let's figure it out, the difference. The stitch count for hip minus waist, which is 162 minus 104, my cast on number, 58. But this number has to be multiple of 4. So I pick 56 because 56 is multiple of 4, close to 58. And now you have to divide it by 2 because both sides, right? Left and right. So 28 stitches each for both sides, left and right. And now you have to divide it by 2 because I will going to increase 2 stitch at a time. So 28 divided by 2 is 14. I have to increase 14 times altogether. And now let's figure it out, the rules. My measurement from waist to hip is 5 inch. Okay, and use the formula how many rows I have to knit. So 4 inch versus 5 inch equal, my gauge is 25 rows versus X row. X equal 31.25 rows I have to knit to reach the 5 inch. Now 31.25 divided by 14 times, which I have to increase 2.2, which means I have to increase every 2 rows. Did you get that? If not, leave your comment below. I will help you. Okay? So now increase kicks in. Okay? Towards to your hip. So this is begin marker, not the side marker. Row number 1 is all knit. For my math, I have to increase every second row. So row number 1, no increasing, just all knit. Row number 2, I increase 2 stitch one side and 2 stitch the other side. So total of 4. And then I will increase 14 times total, which is 56 stitch count. I will increase in total. Again, my row number 1 is all knit. And increasing row number 2, all right, it's easy. Just around the side marker, I will increase both sides. Okay, and 2 stitch at a time for both sides. So knit until last 1 stitch before the marker. Okay, there you go. And I do make one right because this is right side of the marker. So picking up the running thread and that extra stitch I have to knit. This is make one right. I will show you one more time. Don't worry about it. And knit and slide the marker and knit one first, then make one left. Using the running thread and hook onto left needle. Make sure running thread is, shifting left side, and back loop you have to knit. This is make one left. I will show you one more time. Don't worry about it. And just knit until last 1 stitch before the other side of the marker right here. Okay, so make one right because right side of the marker. Using the running thread, pick up and hook onto left needle. Make sure running thread is shifting right side. This is right position for make one right. And there's a V shape connection right there. You always knit V shape. So knit one there. This is make one right. Okay? And then knit one. Then slide the marker. After the marker, you just knit first one and then make one left. Again, picking up the running thread and with left needle, you hook on from the front this time. So the running thread shifting left side and there's no V out front. Okay, there's no connection there because now V connection at the back. So you always have to knit V stitch. But this time, the V at the back, which means purl side. So you push the needle straight in and then, there you go, knit the back loop. That's make one left. Okay, so you just have to keep doing this. Repeat of increasing row number 1 to row number 2 until your desired stitch count according to your math, right? For me, I do 14 times. You know what I'm saying? And then meet you after the increase. Here comes, I finish increasing. And I transfer all the stitches onto my scrap yarn like that. I took the needle out. Why? Because I want to try it on to make sure, this is big enough. And it was actually perfect. So if you need to try it on to make sure, use the scrap yarn. Okay? And now I have to do short row, and I'm going to use technique called Japanese short row, JSR. You can use German short row if you want. Okay? Anyway, the reason why I have to add few rows for the back piece, because the back you have more curve. You need more fabric for the butt area, right? Any pants, jeans, leggings, pajama bottoms, always back fabric is more than front. Okay? And how many rows you want to increase, that's actually up to you. Okay? I'm very short and small, and I don't really have much curve anywhere, my body. So I only increase 10 rows. And that's actually plenty for me. So it's really up to you if you want to add 20 rows or less row, or you don't need to if you actually needing for kids. So it's really up to you. You have to decide. But, look at your pajama bottom, maybe 1 or 2 inch bigger than front, right? Anyway, put the needle back on, and then I knit 1 row because, I finished with the increasing row. So I don't like it. So I knit 1 row. And now I want you to count, stitch count, only for back piece. For me, I have 80 stitches. I started with the 52 stitch for my back and then increased 28 for my back, so total of 80. And then I decide I am going to increase 10 rows. So the butt stitch count, 80 divided by 10, your desired row to increase, equal 8. 80 divided by 10 is 8. So my JSR stitch is 8. If you don't understand, don't worry, but you just have to do the math, okay? Your back piece stitch count divided by how many row you want to increase. And that's the number you need for your short row. You got it? And this short row technique, it's worth to learn because I always use this technique for my back of my sweater after the neck. Okay, because around that part you need a little bit more fabric too. So you should watch and learn how to do it because this Japanese short row technique, it's so easy. Okay, anyway, let's start. GR1, which means gap row number 1. Just knit until side marker. You only knit back piece, okay? And whenever you reach the side marker, you just turn the project. So now you're facing to wrong side, purl side. And this is gap row number 2. Yarn front, slip 1 purlwise, okay? And you need clip-on marker, add marker right on the working yarn like this, hold the marker and start making purl. That's it. Okay? And the reason why I said gap row, because you turn the work and you create the gap. That's why I said gap row. And you purl until the other side of the side marker. And this is end of the gap row number 2. Whenever you hit the other side of the marker, turn the work. Now you're facing to knitting side, right side. Now yarn back, slip 1 purlwise, and add clip-on marker right on the working yarn, and hold the clip marker and start knitting. That's it. This is gap row number 3. And now you have to repeat gap row number 3 and 4. So it's a little bit different than row number 1 and 2. So now you're going to knit until my Japanese short row number is 8. So 8 stitch before the marker, not before the clip. So I am going to add marker right now. Count stitches from the gap, not from the marker, okay? So wherever you turn, you create the gap. So, and my JSR stitch is 8, so 8 from the gap. And this time, same thing, right? I turn at the side marker, so I knit 8 from the gap there, right? And I am actually going to add marker. This is not the Japanese short row marker. This is kind of, indication until when you stop and turn. You know what I'm saying? You don't need to add marker like this if you get confused, but if this is what you like, you should do that. Now, end of gap row number 3, because I hit the, indication marker, right? So what do you have to do? Just remove the marker and turn around, right? And this is purl side, row number 4. Yarn front and slip 1 purlwise. Then you put marker onto working yarn and hold the marker. Then start making purl. And when you turn, you create the gap there. So if you want to add, indication marker, for me, 8 stitch from the gap. I put the, marker for next gap row. If you get confused, you don't have to, but I do anyway. Okay, so this is gap row number 4. So after you put the, the clip, you just have to make a purl until the other side, which is 8 stitch from the gap, and I add the marker there, right? So this is the time. So I turn around, and this is gonna be gap row number 3. You just have to repeat gap row number 3 and 4 until your desired rows. I decide I am going to add 10 rows, right? That's why I did the math, the 80 stitch divided by 10. So my JSR number is 8. Do you remember? Which means end of the Japanese short row, I will have 10 markers in total. 10 gaps, another way to say. All right? Anyway, so just go back and forth. As you can see, the length you knit is shorter and shorter right? Which means center of the back is thicker and thicker, longer and longer. Okay? So there we go. Turn around and slip one purlwise. Put the marker on. Same old, same old. Repeat row number 3 and 4. Right side and wrong side. Easy. Right? There we go. How many markers I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So 5 on right side and 5 on left side. Okay? The yellow one is indication row, probably. So you just have to, make sure about it. Okay? And then whenever you're done, it's kind of blurry, you have to come back to begin marker. Okay? Then I will close the gap I created. Okay? This is closing row number 1. Knit until first gap, not first marker. Okay? You have to be very careful. So knit until first marker. No, gap. I'm sorry. So I just saw the marker, so I said marker, but there you go. You pass the marker, and now pull that marker and hook onto left needle and remove the marker, and then knit 2 together to close that gap. And you don't turn around anymore. Okay? So knit. That's right, knit until next gap. Let's do that together. Knit until next gap. So you have to pass the marker. There we go, right here. That's a big gap. And pull the marker, hook onto left needle, remove the marker. Then this is knit inside, so knit 2 together. There you go. Knit until next gap. Pass the marker. Right? There you go. Pull the marker, hook onto left needle to create one extra stitch, and now you do knit 2 together to decrease that extra stitch to close the gap. This is short row, Japanese short row technique. So maybe a couple more or one more? Yeah, a couple more. So knit the stitch with marker, pull the marker, hook onto the left. There you go. Remove the marker and close the gap with knit 2 together. And it's going to be last gap coming up. Can you see? There's no more gap. It's beautiful, beautifully closed. So let's do that one more time. Okay? Pass that marker, knit until the gap, pull that marker. I just removed the side marker because it's hard to do the knit 2 together with, the side marker in between. So, and knit 2 together to close the gap. Now, I'm done for, the knitting side of the gap, right? So now I turn around, which means I create another gap here. But I will tell you what to do later. Now, let's close the other side of the gap, which is purl side. It's gonna be same method pretty much. Just purl until the gap. Here comes purl until the gap. Pass that marker, right? And here comes, this is a big gap. Pull the marker, hook onto left needle, and this is purl side, so purl two together. That's about it. Easy. And do not turn around, just keep going, right? So purl until next gap, and then pull the marker, hook onto the left needle, create the one extra stitch, and then purl two together to close the gap. At the same time, you eliminate that, one extra stitch there. Okay? There you go. Do the same thing. Exactly same thing, okay? Again, you can skip this short row if you don't need to have the, little bit of more fabric for your back part. All right? But again, if you have a little bit more, fabric for the back piece, it fits you better. However, if you're knitting for, kids, and you don't really need to. Okay? So it's up to you. Also, you don't need to use Japanese short row. Japanese short row is easier for me. I don't hate German short row, but sometimes I get a little confused which, stitch I'm picking up. Maybe I'm getting used to use the Japanese short row too much. So I really like it, because it's easy because there's a, marker. So I know exactly which stitch I have to pick it up, right? Anyway, this is my last gap to close, right? So purl two together, and I have to knit in round from now on. So turn around, and every time you turn around, you create the gap, right? But don't worry about it. First of all, knit back to begin marker and see what I just did. Okay? There we go. Can't you see there's a little slope and more fabric, which is about maybe 1 inch more than front piece? It's really hard to see because same color, right? But that much, about 10 rows, and then, closing the row, so 11 to 12 rows, which is about 1 inch more than front. Okay, that's the short row technique for only back piece. Now I'm going to knit in round, okay, round and round until everything covers your back piece and front piece. And I am going to talk about where the two gaps are, because I turn around 2 times, right? So there is gap around that side marker. And let me talk about it. It's easy. To be really honest with you, you don't really have to do anything if you don't want to. However, if you don't like the gap, because if you knit, it's going to be tiny bit of the hole. So I just actually did make one left right on the gap. That's it. I didn't do knit two together or purl two together, anything like that. No, I just did make one left right on the gap. And, obviously there's the gap, and you just have to create the one extra stitch. Of course, you can avoid the gap, right? So right here, the other side of the big gap here, and I just took it, make sure which, the thread you want to use, and this is make one left. There you go. Try to avoid the gap as much as possible. That's about it. But there's a optional that you don't have to do anything. Just, kind of knit tight around that gap. That's enough too. So after this, just knit, 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 until the enough length to cover your, back piece and front piece, the butt and, front part. Okay, so I increase, and after I increase, I did the, Japanese short row to, put more rows only for the back piece. This is front piece, right? You can see the blue line straight, but this side, little curve and more rows. It's very obvious, right? I'm just telling you that much I increase. And towards the side, less rows, obviously, right? Anyway, so this is good length to cover back and front. Now I have to spread in half. Then create the leg part. Before I'm going to start leg knitting, I have to make, I don't know how to actually call. I actually say bridge, gasset. I don't know, that, section in the middle. You know what I'm talking about. If you see your underwear, there's the, the separation, right? And I don't know how to call in English or in Japanese. I don't even know. And again, bridge. So first of all, you have to count evenly from the begin marker and put the marker. Okay, I take 6 and 6, total of 12. I have to put right in the center, both sides. 6 from the begin, 6 from the begin marker to the left and right. Okay, and exactly same place for the front piece. I add marker. First of all, I thought it was, I should maybe decrease or whatever, but I decide not to. Okay. Again, for me, 12 stitch each for back and front. And now I have to transfer each side of the leg stitch onto each scrap yarn, left and right, different, scrap yarn. Just keep those bridges, stitch. Leave it on now, needle, and everything else you have to transfer. That way it's easy to kind of knit. Okay, so I just actually take the 12, the bridge stitch onto different needle and cable, right? And then the left side and right side of the leg stitch, I'm transfer onto each scrap yarn. By the way, if you don't like that idea to knit bridge, you can just split in half and add in new cast, across from the back piece to front piece. Just the one, line. And then you do same thing, just knit the, legs. But, the reason why I decide to knit the bridge, because if you know exactly how to knit this bridge, you can actually modify to just a short underwear type of, knit pants. You know what I'm saying? That fits you better. Okay, so, to change just a one line, um, add new cast is easy, right? So, um, I'm actually showing you to create the bridge from the back piece to front, but you don't really have to if you don't like it. Anyway, so I start knitting the bridge part, right? So stockinette stitch, easy. Knitting on the right side and then purl on wrong side. And for how long? It's up to you. And this length affect your leg opening size. So if it's short, it's going to be small leg opening, right? So it's really up to you. But for me, I actually measure my underwear. It was 4 inch. So I knitted it about 5 inch because this is not underwear for me. So I kind of want to have relaxed, leggings. So I knit 5 inch. And now I am going to attach those 12 stitch onto front 12 stitch like that. And I want smooth surface to connecting area. So I use the Kitchener bind off. And I'm just making sure the both leg hole should be, big enough for me, right? So this is the time if you want to, change the sizes. After this, you can't really change. All right. So let's do the Kitchener bind off. Easy. So 2 needle front and back, right? So use the tapestry needle and the movement is same as knitting and purling. Okay. So number 1, knit front first piece, right? And then stitch off. Okay, now purl front stitch, purl front stitch, and stay. Do not drop the stitch off. I didn't say off, right? So number 3, purl back stitch like that. Oops. I'm sorry, I did the purl back stitch this time. There we go. And pull the needle together and off. So stitch off. And then the 4, knit back stitch and then stitch stays. Then come back to front piece, knit front stitch, now off. Then purl front stitch and stay. Purl back stitch, then off. You have to kind of pull, make sure it's tight, and knit back piece and stay. Then come back to front, knit front, and then off. You just have to repeat 1 to 4. That's about it. Okay? So purl back, then off. Knit back, stitch, then stay. So it's easy. Knit, purl, knit, and front needle first, and then move on to back needle. And that's pretty much it. And I'll show you how to end it. So this is almost, done, right? So knit front, this is number 1. So off, then purl, front stitch, stay, then purl, back, then off, knit, back, stay. Then come back to front, then done. Then next, purl, then that's it. So as you can see, okay, it's gonna be very smooth surface. Can you see? There's no bumpy, you know, the back piece a little bit, but nothing really. This is Kitchener bind off technique, and you can weave the ends off if you want right now, or you can do that later. Now we can move on to leg part, but let's see. Okay, so from top, use the make the waistband, increase Japanese short row to increase a little bit, and then bridge. Now I create the the leg hole. Okay, if you want to make it really short like underwear like this, fine, you just add the rib right out after that. That's it. Okay, so now you have to kind of decide what kind of bottom wear you want to knit. Maybe pajama bottom, then you just knit straight. Okay, if it's short, maybe knit 5 or 6 7 inch and then add rib, whatever. But for me, I'm going to knit all the way down and then decrease. Okay, so first of all, transfer all the stitch onto the needle. Of course, one side. Okay, I'm not gonna knit both sides at the same time. The green marker, just forget it. Okay, I missed one stitch, so I just put the marker there. Anyway, so I want you to start from center of the bridge because that's where I want to decrease 2 stitch at the same time. There. Okay? So I want you to start knitting up from the center of the bridge. So wherever no stitches are, like the bridge, you just have to knit up and you have to count, right? Obviously, because you have the other side of the leg and you want to knit up same amount of the stitches, right? So slowly on the edge, if there is no stitch, you have to knit up. Don't knit up too many, but don't knit up too less. Just about same length as just a regular knitting stitch. And I knit up half, about 16, I believe. And now there are stitches, right? So what do you have to do? Just knit. Knit until the other side of the bridge. And then you have to knit the other half. Okay? Because leg part has to be round. And I'm going to knit in round from now again. Now I have to do a little bit of math again. First of all, count whole stitch. I have 100 stitch total. And can you make a plan? Your goal target stitch. I have a swatch. So I wrap it around my ankle and then I count. Or you measure and then, you put that number into the formula and find out how many stitches. But I decide at the very bottom of my ankle should be 40 stitches enough. So 100 minus 40 is 60, right? So that's how many I have to decrease. Also, I am going to decrease 2 stitch at same time on the same row. Right after the begin marker and right before the begin marker, right on the same row. So I decrease 6 stitch total, right? Divided by 2 because 2 stitch at the same time. So I am going to decrease 30 times. Within how long? Your desired leg length. For me, 24 inches. Okay? From the bridge to ankle before the rib. So you have to figure it out how many rows you're going to knit for 24 inches. So 4 inches versus 24 inch, my desired length, equal 25 rows. This is my knitting tension, rows. Okay? 4x equal 24 times 25, x equal 24 times 25 divided by 4 equal 150 rows. I am going to knit 150 rows to reach my desired leg length, which is 24 inch. So 150 rows divided by 30 times that I have to decrease equal 5, which means I will have to decrease 2 stitch every 5 rows. Did you get that? So you have to count your stitch number as is and decide how many stitch you want to decrease. And difference divided by 2. That's the, how many times you have to decrease. And for within how long. And if you know the length, you put the length in the formula for your gauge and find out how many rows you have to knit to reach that length. And whenever you find out the rows, divided by how many times you decrease, that's your decreasing pattern. Okay? So for me, 2 stitch every 5 rows. So leg row number 1 to leg row number 4 on it. So 1, 2, 3, 4 on it. That's very obvious. And row number 5, I am going to decrease. I know a lot of people don't like the math. This is simple math, but too many numbers and you get confused. And if you do, just ask me. Leave the comment below. I'm gonna try to help you. Okay? So leg row number 5. I'm gonna start right away. Okay? Within row number 5, I am going to decrease. So knit 1 and yarn back and slip 1 purlwise. Then knit next one. Then that slip stitch, PSSO, pass slip stitch over, and I decrease 1. That's it. And knit until last 3 stitch. And you just do the knit 2 together and knit 1. That's about it. This math and technique is same as sleeves for sweater, decreasing. And right here, 3 stitch left and knit 2 together and then knit 1. So I decrease 2 stitch within row number 5. And you just have to repeat row number 1 to row number 5 until your target rows. For me, 150, according to my math. All right? That's about it. I'm not going to show you one more time for decreasing because it's too easy. Okay, so as you can see, I knit 150 rows and evenly decreased inside of my legs. Okay, and 40 stitch left, obviously, right? That was my target, goal stitch number at around ankle. And the rib is repeat of knit 1 and purl 1 until your desired length. Again, if you don't want to decrease any stitch for leg and you want to knit just like pajama bottom, you can do it. Okay? I tried to show you the most difficult way so you can, modify the pattern easily, right? Anyway, after you reach the desired length for rib, you bind off and bind off with one size bigger needle. Using the one size bigger needle to cast on and bind off, that gives you more space. So it's going to be stretchy and easy to put it on. There you go. I knitted it about 3-inch and then bind off. Again, I change the needle to one size bigger needle and bind off. And after this, don't forget to do the other side of the legs, right? Obviously. And you don't really have to worry about it too much because you already did the, math, right? So you just follow whatever your, numbers are. And then weave the all the ends off. That's about it. Oh, and if you don't like the, waist line area, if it's too loose, you might want to put the elastic band. So you have to kind of make a tube and sew them around and put the, elastic band in it. It's really up to you. You know what I'm saying? For me, I'm not gonna do it because I really want to have the cozy, relaxed, leggings. So there we go. This is the other side of the leg, and I knit exactly same rows, which is 150 and decreased, right? It's beautiful. I just love it. And around my hip, it fits me really well. I really like it. And I'm going to give you a warning now. This is way too warm. Okay? You feel you have to be lazy for all day. Anyway, that's about it. Thank you for watching and enjoy knitting. Bye for now.